to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, much like yesterday, I'm going to combine two topics into one. And this was actually suggested by one of my subscribers. I was thinking about doing a video on it anyway, but in my comments on my last video, I want to give him a quick shout out. Freddie suggested, why don't you do a video on Nigel Bradham and what Mel Kiper had to say about Jeff Okudah? He said, how do you feel about Mel Kiper picking us to take Jeff Okudah from Ohio State and the Eagles releasing Nigel Bradham? Do you think that they could be potential players for the New York Giants? Would you mind doing a video on these two? And of course, I always try to do what you guys want to watch. You know, that's what this channel is about. You know, I try to educate you guys with certain videos, and I try to talk about rumors. In the offseason, there's not a lot to talk about. And I want to say thank you to all you guys for continuing to support my channel. Even in the offseason, even this year when the team was as bad as it was, you guys continue to support my channel. You guys continue to make me want to thrive to do as good as I can on this channel and put out, as you know, not just as many, but as high quality videos as I possibly can. So I want to say thank you. You know, as you grow, you get a lot more trolls, but you get even more people that support you. And because of you guys, it does inspire me to continue to work as hard as I can on the channel. So I want to say thank you to that. I feel like I don't say it enough. So thank you guys. But yeah, let's jump right into the video. Let's talk about Mel Kiper and, you know, having the Giants taking Jeff Okudah. And let's talk about Nigel Bradham, who, of course, is the veteran middle linebacker with the Philadelphia Eagles, who the Eagles decided to release today. You know, and then we'll get into some of the quotes. But we'll start with Okudah. We'll start with the mock draft by Mel Kiper. And I think it's funny because I did a video on this exact scenario about a week ago. A lot of people called me crazy. They said there's no way the Giants would take Okudah. And I'm sure those people still feel the same way. But I agree with Kiper that it's at least a reasonable possibility. I think a lot of people were not taking this into account because most people had the Lions just taking them, and people look at the Giants situation and they say, well, you took DeAndre Baker, you took Sam Beal, you took Love, you took Ballantyne, you spent a lot of, you know, draft picks on the cornerback position, and they certainly did. And I'm not saying this is going to happen. He may very well not even get to the Giants. If the Detroit Lions obviously trade away Slay, there's a good chance they just draft Okudah. Now, of course, they could draft a quarterback or they could trade down, which is what I had in my video. I had the Dolphins trading up to the Lions pick and taking Tua Tagovailoa. Well, he actually just had the Lions staying put. He believes in the rumor and had the Lions taking Tua at number 3 and had the New York Giants then selecting Jeffrey Okudah out of Ohio State. Now, some of the knocks a lot of my subscribers have had on Okudah, not so much a knock, but they said it's hard to get a fair evaluation on him because he played at Ohio State. You had great pass rushers there. When you're going to be playing with the New York Giants, they're not going to be getting pressure on the quarterback, and he might get exposed. And that's fair to say. But by all accounts, by all, you know, top-tier scouts, Okudah is thought to be one of the best prospects to come out of the draft in a very long time at this position, among one of the best. And usually when you have a player like that, they're usually at least productive corners. And if you're being completely honest with yourself and fair, and I'm a big fan of DeAndre Baker. DeAndre Baker had a rough rookie year. He had some ups, he had some downs. But if you're being completely fair and honest with yourself, you can't honestly believe that going into next season, you trust DeAndre Baker to be a number 1 corner. Now, he could develop to that in season, and I don't even think you can honestly say that you trust Sam Beal to be a number 2. Sam Beal's had injury problems, and he hasn't really shown that he's that good of a player yet. So our secondary remains weak. It remains with potential. You know, obviously we spent high draft picks on some of these players, and we hope that they grow. But it remains a huge question mark. There's no doubt about it, and we could still use a lot of help there. Now, of course, they could bring in Byron Jones, who I talked about in my last video. They could try to trade for Slay. They could bring in Chris Harris Jr. They could definitely go the trade or free agency route to try to address this problem after they got rid of Janoris Jenkins, which I think we all expected. Even before he did what he did, he was a huge cap hit. So we'll see what they decide to do. But I do think that Jeffrey Okudah is a strong possibility for the Giants if he is there at 4. Wouldn't be my favorite, and it wouldn't be what I would want. I want an offensive tackle or a trade down. Or Isaiah Simmons. You know, Isaiah Simmons and Okudah to me are kind of neck and neck. I think they're both areas of need, and I want the Giants to take whoever they feel is the better player. I recognize the attraction to Isaiah Simmons. He's a jack-of-all-trades player. He's very valuable. He could cover out of the linebacker spot, but a lockdown corner is just as valuable. You could actually argue is more valuable. So I would not be upset with either one of those players. I personally prefer a tackle. That's just my preference. That's my opinion. Just because we have a second-year quarterback, we invested a second overall pick in Saquon Barkley, and the offensive line was very poor last year. And they're old, and they need, an influx of young talent. And if you get Andrew Thomas there, you get Jedrick Wills. I think it's the way that I would go. I would look to trade down and still try to get an offensive tackle, but that would be my ideal situation. But I would certainly understand if they took Okudah or Isaiah Simmons. I think they're all viable options. I think those are the three favorites at this point in time. The other thing we'll touch on, and then we'll get into some of the quotes, is Nigel Bradham, the longtime linebacker of the Philadelphia Eagles, was released today. A bit of a surprise, but at the end of the day, the Eagles don't have a lot of cap relief. Being that they always sign these high-profile free agents, they backload the contracts. We know the deal, which is why that they're rumored to be trying to get some of them. But that's obviously why they released Bradham. They're trying to free up some cap space. They signed him to a $40 million contract, a 5-year deal 2 years ago, and we'll get into the specifics in a second. And they released him. Yeah, so Bradham is a good player, but the issue I have with Bradham, he's not known to be good in coverage. He's a run defender, and he's very good at that. He's a good, in terms of guarding against the run, that's his strength, and that's certainly valuable. But in today's NFL, the whole reason why I think Giants fans are attracted to Corey Littleton, whether it be free agency or attracted to Isaiah Simmons in the draft, is because they could cover. It is even more important in today's NFL, in a passing league, to have a linebacker who's capable in coverage. Something that the Giants have not had. Alec Ogletree is not known to be great in coverage. We'll see how Conley is when he gets back, if he's healthy. And Mayo is very good against the run, which is even more of a reason why I wouldn't bring in Bradham. David Mayo is basically a younger version of Bradham. Now, I know he's not as accomplished. I can't say he's as good, but they're a similar type of player. David Mayo last year showed that he was at least good against the run, and I think could be a good rotational linebacker, something that at this point in Bradham's career, at 31 years old, he probably is. He's not going to be like an all-star linebacker for you, so I personally would stay away. Depending on the cost. If you get him for very cheap, go ahead. But I don't think you're going to get him for extremely cheap to the point where I would be interested. I think he's still going to cost you between $4.5 to $6 million a year. But let's jump into some of the quotes about both Bradham and Jeff Okudah, what Mel Kiper had to say about him. We're going to start with Nigel Bradham of the Philadelphia Eagles. And this was an article actually written by what equates to Giants Wire for the Rams. The Rams are projected to lose Littleton. They were talking about sound reasoning as to why they would be interested in bringing Bradham in to replace Corey Littleton. He played 12 games with the Eagles last season, recording 61 tackles, 1 interception, 5 passes defended, and a 48-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown. He had 287 total tackles the 3 years prior, earning a grade between 64.7 and 75.5 from Pro Football Focus. Each season, he was with the Eagles. So there you have it. And those are pretty solid grades. And like I said, I don't like to promote PFF. A lot of things they have is way off. It was just in the quote where they were going over stats in the article. But to compare that to Alec Ogletree, I believe, has never had a grade over 67 or 68. I did a video on that at some point. But like I said, his strength is in against the run. He's not very good in coverage, and that's the book on Bradham. Then this is what they had to say about his contract. His last contract was for $40 million over 5 years, or $8 million per season. That was 2 years ago, so there's almost no chance he'll top that salary on his next contract. Consequently, he could probably be had for around $5 or $6 million a year, which is a reasonable price for a starting linebacker. And it is. It's definitely a reasonable price for a starting linebacker. But for the Giants, I think I'd rather spend that $5 or $6 million somewhere else. I think Mayo, like I said, is a younger version of Bradham. Maybe not quite as good. I'm not saying he is, but if we're going to bring in a linebacker via free agency or the draft, I want them to be coverage linebackers. That is what's valuable in today's NFL. You need as many guys as you could cover in a passing league. So, to me, he's a good old school linebacker, but I'm not shelling out $5 or $6 million a year to bring him in. If he wants to come here for $3 million, we'll entertain it. And then finally, this is what Kiper had to say about Jeffrey Okudah and his reasoning as to why he could see him going to the New York Giants. So if Tonga Vailoa jumps into the top 3, that means the Giants could choose between Okudah and Clemson linebacker Isaiah Simmons, whom I mocked to the Giants in my first projection of picks 1 to 32. And after the Giants cut Janoris Jenkins in December, cornerbacks surged to the top of the team's needs. And I agree with that. I'm not saying it's the top, but I think a lot of people, like I said earlier, have just assumed that it's not a big need because we've spent draft picks and early draft capital on that position. That doesn't mean it's not a big need. Those guys could easily be misses. They have not demonstrated, at least to this point in time, that they were worthy of those draft selections. So I think it's still a big need for the New York Giants, and I think it's a position, like I said in that video I made, that Dave Gettleman has clearly shown he's putting heavy emphasis on. So that's why I'm not ruling out Jeffrey Okudah, and that's why Mel Kiper's not ruling out Jeffrey Okudah. First round draft pick DeAndre Baker had a rough rookie season, racking up 9 penalties and getting burned badly at times. Let's get Okudah to New York in this scenario, locking down one side of the field with the clear top corner in this class. Edge rusher and offensive line are also positions the team must address in the offseason. And yeah, he's absolutely right about that. That, to me, is probably the 2 biggest needs: offensive tackle, edge rusher. Arguably the 2 most important positions on a football team outside of the quarterback. But a cornerback is up there, too. If you could get a great cornerback, it's definitely incredibly valuable. And Jeffrey Okudah may be that guy. After all, if you could cover longer, it gives your pass rushers that extra second to get after the quarterback. We'll see if the Giants are interested in him. Of course, for them to be, the Detroit Lions would have to pass on him, and they could certainly take him if they are obviously rumored to be looking to get rid of Darius Slay. Are they in on the quarterback? Are they looking to trade down? Or will Okudah be their guy? But if Okudah is there at 4, I would certainly not rule out the possibility of the New York Giants taking him with that pick. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.